Fantastic. I think that means we're live. I am going to double check on my other screen though. But yeah, so welcome everyone to Guitar Builders Collective. As some of you know, we're trying at the moment each week when we get together for our just general chat about guitar building to invite someone on who hasn't been on before, who we've met through the Jurgs Cup. I'll talk about the Jurgs Cup a bit later. So you'll recognise here, oh, there we are live. You'll recognise myself, Daniel, and Alan. We're both in the UK. I'm Devil and Sons Guitars. Alan's Rough Boy Guitars. But we're joined today by Don, who's over in Canada. Hi, Don.
How's it going?
Brilliant and great to have you here. So,
That's
Don
good to hear.
from Siltanen Guitars. That's your
Yeah.
and that's your surname?
Yes.
Yes. I always wonder where people's guitar companies' names come from. Last week we had someone. It was based on the town that he lived in or grew up in.
Oh, wonderful.
Don, there's so much to talk about because sometimes you have people on with the Jurgs Cup who are new to guitar building, might be their first build. Sometimes you've had people that have made a few. You've been, if I'm right, you've had your company for 8 years now. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what I'd love to go into today is a little bit about the background, how you got into building.
Sure.
How you set up your company. We were just talking off air about the fact that obviously your geographical location means that the temperature's totally different to where I am, and it makes it harder to paint. There's a limited window when you've got the right temperatures to paint. So we can go into all that. And of course, a bit later on, we go into the Jurgs Cup as well, if that's all right.
Oh, wonderful.
What I would love to know to start with, though, and also if anyone's in the chat that wants to join in, I will keep looking across at the chat to bring up comments. And I can see there's a few people there. So welcome, everyone. I was just wondering, Don, what's your first memory of guitars? How did you get into guitars?
First memory of guitars would be my dad. So I'm really, really fortunate. I was raised in a very musical household. My dad is a multi-instrumental singer-songwriter, recording artist. I mean, he's one of those guys that if it has strings on it, chances are he will figure out how to play it. So a lot of my earliest memories are probably back to the mid 70s, like mid to late 70s, early 80s. My dad was a singer and guitar player in a bluegrass band. So, the band happened to practice at our house on Wednesday nights. And so I grew up with that, just being immersed in it. And then my mom is a massive rock and roll fan, Rolling Stones, a lot of that kind of stuff. So I can remember basically there was always music in the house one way or another, either my dad playing or my mom, putting a record on, while we were doing things around the house, or Soul Train on TV or something like that. So I was immersed in it right from the get-go.
So I may be wrong. I always think of bluegrass guitarists, it's a real skill, but I also think of it, and maybe I'm wrong, of being a kind of folk tradition of people getting together and just playing.
Yeah, exactly. There's a massive community of people around here that play guitar. I mean, this like I said, if we're talking about geography and weather, we have a very short summer. We have a long winter, and it's very common for people to get together on a weekend and just sit around in the kitchen and have a couple of drinks and drag out a couple of guitars and off you go. It's very much a homespun kind of thing. So in my hometown, you can't throw a rock without hitting a good musician.
Amazing.
There's just awash with them, literally.
And what is your hometown?
I'm in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, in Canada. So right on the U.S. border. Sault Ste. Marie is actually a split town. The border divides the town. The border is actually the St. Mary's River that runs through the middle of town. We have the majority of the population lives on the Canadian side, something about 75, 80,000 now. And then the American side is about 15,000.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that. Are there quite a few towns like that?
There are, actually. There are some towns where, the dividing line is the middle of the street. We're fortunate we have a river and a bridge that, the dividing line is a little bit more linear and well-defined. But in some cases, you walk across the street and you're in a different country. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I can't get my head around that. There must be, I mean, I guess, different taxes to your neighbour across the roads, different
Well,
postal systems, whatever.
What too is there's different businesses, and so it's a very common thing, or at least it was a very common thing until recently, for people to um, just pop over to the United States to go shopping, or fill up on petrol or something along those lines. Like it was, cross-border. Even families, you might have mom and dad live on one side of the border, kids are living on the other side. In my case, I did my undergraduate degree in the United States at the university that's just on the other side of the river. So it's a very integrated society up here.
Amazing. And so you're talking about the idea that you grew up around music and everyone there is a musician. Am I right? Because I was reading over your website that you were a musician for a while before you or maybe still are. I don't mean to stop being a musician, before moving over to making guitars.
Yeah, I have been. So I started out, from what I'm told, because some of this is not my recollection, it's being told. I started out playing harmonica at like 4 or 5. Somebody was foolish enough to give me one. And then I briefly tried mandolin, and that didn't work out so well. And then around about 11 or 12 is when guitar really started to come to the forefront, and I got very, very interested in it. And it was just one of those things where, Dad was willing to show me, and I was keen to learn. So we just started, and it kind of took off from there. I mean, I did the bluegrass thing for ages, but as I mentioned before, we had this big record collection, a lot of the stuff from my mom, even from my dad, from his days of playing in rock bands and stuff in the 70s. There was always this stuff around, so I learned everything I could. And we lived out in the countryside, fairly rural, so wasn't like I could pop down to the shops or anything like that to entertain myself. So what do you do? Well, I got a guitar, so I'll sit in my room and learn these songs. Amazing. So I played almost every genre of music you can think of at this point. Played all through high school, even played in the stage band, played timpanis and bass for our stage band in our high school, punk bands, rock bands, blues bands, all the way up through the beginning of my university career. And then when I moved to Toronto to go to dental school, some of the guys that I had played with in bands around town actually looked me up, and they needed a bass player for a show that they were planning to do back home at Christmas time.
I thought you were going to say they needed a dentist then. But
yeah, no, they didn't need me at that, that's for sure. But they needed somebody to fill in on bass, and I had never done it before other than in the high school stage band, which is a bit of a different thing. And so I ended up in that band for about 3 years, albums. I mean, we had a great time. It was, a tremendously creative period. So I've always been a musician. I just have a really weird day job.
So would you remember what it was, or at what point you started making or tinkering with guitars to then move on to building them?
Actually, the initial impetus was actually a relic Strat in a local music shop. Because I've always thought that an old beat up Strat just had something to it. There was an appeal there. Steve Ray Vaughan was a big influence growing up, so saw this guitar hanging there, and I liked everything about it except the price. And I thought, well, geez, I can make that. I mean, it's I can run a screwdriver and a soldering iron, it can't be that hard, and I can probably do it cheaper. Which, I mean, down the rabbit hole we go. I ended up basically starting into it that way, and then kind of getting a lot more serious about it a little bit later on in life. Not a very happy story, but my wife was diagnosed with cancer, and I needed something to do to kind of take my mind elsewhere, and started really kind of getting into, okay, how do I build these things? I can do parts casters. What happens if I start with raw wood? What happens if I start with a plank? What happens if I okay, let me try and make a neck. And through YouTube videos and getting in touch with guys like Matt and Chris from Texas Toast, that's really kind of where things went for me. I mean, those two guys are probably a huge reason as to why I'm doing this. You know, I was fortunate enough to be able to get out to Denver and you know, get some training, and it went from there. I learned how to do one thing, and then you realize you don't know how to do something else, so you want to learn that, and then it goes on, and you do the next thing, and then, you know, it kind of snowballs a little bit.
I mean, it sounds silly. I know Texas Toast from YouTube, but I always forget that they run courses. They run a school.
Yeah. They have some monumental courses. They're usually 5 days. Sometimes, occasionally, there's a paint extension or anything along something like that to try to finish some of the more complicated builds. But yeah, they run some great courses. Some of them are integrated with Dylan McCurchie from Dylan Talks Stone. If you're familiar with his work, he's the guy who taught me how to wind pickups. So it's one of those things where I've learned what I do from some of the people that were generous enough to show me, you know. So I've really benefited from my time around some of these people, and I'm fortunate enough that, you know, some of them now are very close friends, and it really makes this a pretty special hobby to be into.
Yeah. I mean, just to backtrack slightly, I definitely know multiple people. So if people haven't seen this stream before, we do this every week, but we used to do it where it was more sort of organized. We get people on for long chats, 2 hours, and more like interviews. And now it's a bit more laid back. But there's an archive that I've link in the description here, and we've probably spoken to over 80, maybe 90 people now. So many people have got into guitar building either because they've seen an instrument in a shop that they've wanted, haven't been able to afford, and thought, I can give it a go, or they've talked about the therapeutic values of making things and using your hands and being able to have that in your life as well. And what I always find fascinating is most of us all start off doing it on our own, and for a lot of people it's a lonely job making guitars. You're on your own in your workshop, so having that opportunity to meet up with people and have that community that you're talking about, that's what I love about the Jurgs Cup, which we'll talk about a bit later, and the online is having a community. Oh, and as I said that, sorry, Ray's just arrived. I'm just going to drop Ray into the chat as well. Hey, Ray.
Hi. Hi, all.
Ray joining us.
Thing. Bear with me.
Very early in Australia. Oh, do you want me to not go on yet? Hey, John, what I was thinking, do you mind if I do a screen share of your website so we can look at some of the guitars you've built?
Oh, sure. I mean, the website is definitely not great at the moment, but yeah, go right ahead.
I just thought it seemed like a good place to see some great images.
Sure.
Hold on, I've got to set that up here. Yeah. So, at what point did you decide that you were actually going to do it as a sort of company?
I essentially got more or less roped into it by Canada Customs because I was bringing so much stuff across the border from the U.S. Supplies and wood and all that kind of stuff. They were like, okay, you really need to get a corporate license here because, you know, you're bringing all of these parts in and wood and everything else. You know, if you're selling this stuff, you really should have a commercial import license.
Right.
So that's kind of what spurred it on. And plus, I mean, the whole idea behind making it its own company was that eventually it would be self-funding. I mean, I'm not particularly concerned with making a living by making instruments. I think I probably make about 47 cents an hour doing this, but I love to do it. And so if I get to a point where the instruments are in the hands of people who appreciate them, and the instruments are essentially self-sustaining, then I'll be a happy guy.
Yeah, doing it for money is it's not the right career for most people. I don't think. There are some. Hey, look, I don't know where to start. I used to, when I grew up, I knew what a Strat was, I knew what a Telly was, and I knew what a Les Paul was. And that was about it, really. And a Warlock. I remember discovering Warlocks. But I think maybe in my 30s, I discovered how much I like this kind of the Les Paul Juniors and the Les Paul Specials.
Yeah.
Amazing. And also how much I like this wood matte finish.
Yeah, they are my absolute favorite thing to build. They're a relatively simple instrument. I mean, it's, in my case, I tend to build more with limba than anything else. I try to make them as light as I possibly can. That kind of that's a theme that runs across all of my instruments. So the two instruments pictured in the center of the screen are both made out of black limba. And I think the one that has the burst finish around the edge weighs 5.5 pounds. The one with the humbucker and the natural finish is 6 pounds. So I like I say, I try to get them as light as I can. And they're so much fun.
So what is it that you like about, you said that they're the most fun to build. What is it? Because I particularly, I love the look of a guitar that doesn't have loads of pickups and loads of knobs on it.
Yeah, I appreciate the simplicity of it. I appreciate that as far as the method of construction, it is a set neck that has a fairly long neck tenon. It goes almost to where that pickguard just stops covering.
Right.
I have a bit of a soft spot for single pickup guitars. Whether it's a neck pickup or a bridge pickup doesn't matter. I really like single pickup guitars. And I tend to be, a plug it in and turn everything to 10 kind of player. And for that, a junior with a single P90 in it is just about as good as it gets. I mean, you plug it in, you turn it to 10 and rock and roll comes out. It's awesome. I love it.
Look, I still have an LPJ with a P90, and yeah, that's it exactly. And in fact, I ditched the tone control, and I've got a coil split switch in there.
Okay.
Because it's running a stacked P90. But yeah, I agree. Keep it simple.
So much fun. And I mean, I built them initially with an angled neck and a wraparound bridge and a dog ear P90, and then decided I like the hip shot string through bridge that I had been using on some of the other projects a lot better. So redesigned the instrument to be essentially flat. And so you get a string through hip shot bridge. You get a soap bar P90 rather than a dog ear. So there is some adjustability there. So we've done a little bit of work to try to make it, it's pretty obvious that it's a tribute to that double cut junior from, 59 and 60. But it's just different enough that, we can call it our own, but they're so much fun. They're such a cool little guitar.
Yeah. I and when you mentioned the hip shot bridge, then I saw it was on 3 of those photos there. I'm going to zoom in. Love a pink guitar. Who doesn't love a pink guitar?
Yeah.
So you just mentioned something. Can you tell us a bit about the business? Is it more than just you then?
I do have. I have a first cousin. We're raised such that he's more like my little brother, and he comes and helps occasionally, especially with the fret work. His name is John Barber. So yeah, there is a we. I do most of the work. Unfortunately, John's job doesn't permit him much free time. So I do, primarily the lion's share of the work. But John is also a really, really good resource when it comes to artist relations. He's been a musician for most of his life as well. He's a really, really talented singer, really, really good frontman, does a Tool cover band and a Tragically Hip cover band. You guys probably have no idea who the Tragically Hip are, but in Canada, they are a massive, massive thing. So John, by his position in those two bands, knows just a ton of musicians. So we've been able to get these guitars into a few people's hands just via John's connections. So he kind of does the he'll come out and do the fretwork, but he's the artist relations guy, so which is really quite nice because I'm not terribly good at that.
I think we all need someone to do the fretwork. That's the best deal.
And the marketing and the artist relation.
Yeah.
I think it's rare that you have that people have the crossover skills. Not that people don't, some people do. But for me, I definitely see when I go to guitar shows in the UK, a lot of amazing builders who are quite introverted and maybe not the best at putting themselves out there in a salesman capacity. Hey, look, talking about salesman, Dastardly Dave's just said he has that Model T.
So so that's so the TSO that's on the middle of the screen there, with the flamed limba top, belongs to Dave Chenzoff. Yeah, so that guitar was built for the 100-ounce challenge that Texas Toast put on a few years ago.
Yeah,
and it weighs exactly 100 ounces, so 6.25 pounds. It's a black limba body that's chambered with a flamed black limba top and black limba neck. The fretboard is, I'm pretty sure that's just a big chunk of rosewood. It's got tortoiseshell binding all the way around. And then the pickups are a cross between a Strat pickup and a P90. So they're a P90 bobbin, but they have slug magnets rather than the screws and bar magnets that you would normally get in a P90. Just basically to save weight. So a bit of a happy accident because they turned out to be a really, really nice, very clear, very vintage sounding pickup, almost like a Jazzmaster pickup, if you want to think of it that way. Turned out to be a really fantastic guitar.
So I'm going to ask you about the pickups in a moment. I just noticed on your fretboards, but am I right that you don't put fret markers on your fretboards?
I do not. There are no face dots on
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, that it's a bit of a weird thing. I've never been a really big fan of basically any inlay on a fretboard. It all goes back to a guitar player by the name of Tony Rice. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but he's a giant in the bluegrass world, and he played an older Martin that had the fretboard replaced. And it was just straight black piece of ebony. And I just, for some reason, as a young man, latched onto that and thought, okay, someday I'm going to get to the point where I'll be good enough that I don't need fret markers. And that seemed to me to be the sign of somebody who was a really, really good player. Now, they still have side dots. So when you look down at the front of the guitar or the side of the guitar, you can still see where you're going. But as far as face dots, no, I've done a few guitars that had them and decided, okay, that's just not for me. I prefer everything neat and clean on the top, and I like the way it looks from an aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah, I'm with you on the aesthetics totally. And also, what do I do? I mean, I'm not the greatest player. I definitely look at the side dots. I don't know if I really ever look at the fret markers properly in that way. And
a lot of my guitars don't have fret markers, and it wasn't a design choice. It was just, oops, I forgot. Welcome to the world of ADHD. But they've all got side markers, and honestly, I don't notice.
Yeah.
If you take away my side markers, we have discussions.
The running joke amongst the group of guys that I hang out with in the Texas Toast community as well. The face dots are for the bass player anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I feel like you can go over the top with inlays. That's brilliant. But if I see a dot on a fretboard that's a bit too small, it bugs me. I just look at it. I'm like, that's wrong, and I don't know why. But I can't take the guitar seriously. But as soon as it doesn't have them, I feel like it's a next level instrument.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have always thought that, someday if I was really lucky, my instruments would be in the hands of people that were really, really good or really dedicated, one way or the other, because you don't have to be good to be dedicated. And that they would appreciate the fact that there was a conscious decision made to make everything just look so much cleaner.
Mm.
And to be honest, going back to the Texas Toast connection, Matt from Texas Toast is another guy who is not a huge fan of inlay, so we're kindred spirits in that regard.
Just quickly, there's a few people in the chat that haven't been in for a while. There's some regulars and there's some new people as well. So hello everyone, welcome. If you're watching in the future, so you're not in the live chat, but you're able to leave a comment, do let me know where you've heard about the podcast from, and also where you're based. I'm always interested to know where everyone's from. Mark's just put in the chat, put a dot on every fret. So one of my favourite people for making fretboards is a guy called Stu from SBC Guitars, and his fretboards look like galaxies. They have the fret markers on, but they sort of shoot out in different directions. So you have these periphery little dots and lines and rays on it. So it's like an artwork. It's incredible. The amount of work that goes into his fretboards, they are like an artwork. So it's a bit different to just having a fret marker, but they basically have one on every fret, a mark.
Yeah, for the price he sells his guitars, he must be working for about 10p an hour.
Oh, I mean,
I think one of those guitars, I saw him at Brighton, he's saying it took him 150 hours.
I think he'd be losing money selling his guitars. Yeah, but they're incredible.
I was fortunate enough that the guitar that I learned to play on, the acoustic I learned to play on, was built by a Canadian builder by the name of Jean Lerve. My dad commissioned it in the late 70s, and it had the most amazing inlay on the fretboard, ebony fretboard with really just gorgeous stuff all up the fretboard, and then inlaid into the headstock with an eagle picking up a snake, and just a stunning piece of kit. And apparently John did the majority of the woodwork and structural work on the guitar, and his wife was the one who did all the inlay work, and it was all done in abalone and all the rest. Just a gorgeous piece. Just what you want your 12-year-old to learn on.
The great thing about art is it's totally subjective. Different people like different things. But I love that you can see the talent that someone might have that they put into it. But that doesn't necessarily make it better than a fretboard with nothing on it.
No, it doesn't. But
I love that you had that.
Yeah, it still. I mean, I can picture that guitar in my head to this day because I spent so much time with it in my arms. And that fretboard, God, it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous instrument.
Amazing. That's a good thing to learn on.
Yeah.
You, maybe there's something. I very much believe that what a guitar looks like affects the way you play it. And if you're learning on something that looks amazing, maybe it makes you want to play more. Hey, look, we're going to run out of time. Going off tangents. I want to talk about you a bit more. Can I get back onto your pickups?
Absolutely.
So tell us about your pickups. It sounded like you made a couple specifically for a reason, like keeping the weight down.
Right.
And it turned out to be brilliant. But what's the difference with your other ones?
So what happened was this goes back again. We're gonna see a recurring theme here. This goes back to another contest that Texas Toast had, this $400 challenge. So you had to build a guitar, all of the components of the guitar, strings, everything, all of the stuff that made up the physical guitar couldn't cost more than $400 US. And I had been buying my pickups from Dylan Kirchie, and Dylan's pickups are brilliant, but they didn't fit in the budget. Now, Dylan had taught me how to wind pickups in a couple classes that I had been to. So I knew how to do it, and I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to have a chance of competing here and having a little bit of budget to get some nice tuners and a nice bridge and whatnot, I'm going to have to make my own. So as I mentioned previously, the winters are very, very long and cold here. So I bought a winder and sat down with that notebook that you can see that says happy on the front of it, and just started making pickups and started going through recipes. And I have a couple of test guitars here where I would just swap the pickups out. And after about probably 3 months, maybe 35 pickups or so, I arrived at recipes that I thought sounded like I wanted the pickups to sound. and then decided that, okay, well, unless somebody orders something different, I'm going to make all of the pickups for my guitars, whether it's humbuckers or P90s or single coils, or I did Filtertrons for the last contest that they had, the Great American Guitar Build-Off. So I've gotten to the point where there are some pickups that I make with regularity that are, I'm really, really happy with how they sound. I'm quite pleased with them being able to get the sound that's in my head out of an amplifier. And it's been quite nice, actually. It's that extra little something that goes into the guitar, and another little piece of me. So basically, we're starting out with, wood and fret wire here. And, by the time it's done, we've basically built an entire instrument, pickups, paint, everything. I do it all. So I like having that level of control and influence, I guess you could say, into how the guitar is going to sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And
they're all named after space programs.
Oh yes.
So,
and I know obviously you make them for yourself, but you said you also obviously sell them, but you said you sent some over to Paul from Mild House Studios, one of his builds.
That's right. Yeah, Paul was doing a build that he was going to donate that had P90s in it. I think it was a Revstar, if I'm not mistaken, the first one that he did. So I sent him a set of P90s, and then he had mentioned that he would be doing a Gilmore Strat. So I made a loaded pickguard for him. Basically 3 single coil Strat pickups, wired with a blend knob rather than a switch, and sent that over to him as well. And then when I went to see him for a visit, I took another couple sets of pickups that have made their way into a couple of guitars that he owns as well. So I don't normally sell the pickups. There are some notable exceptions. People have contacted me locally for the most part and been like, hey, I need this. Can you make me something? It's been very, very low volume, but I tend to refer most of the people to Dylan if they want custom pickups. In my particular case, I just kind of like to do them for my instruments. But I've done, sets for friends and stuff like that. And then some one-off stuff where, it's a friend of a friend kind of thing. So, it's a very small town. It's easy enough to be in contact with a lot of different players, and sometimes they just can't find what they want. So I try to help them out.
That's brilliant. I love the idea that when you get one of your guitars, everything in it is yours. Hey, so just to change the point slightly, as we're mentioning Paul's been involved this year with the Jurgs Cup. So I'll just quickly, in case there's anyone here that doesn't know about the Jurgs Cup, let me just click this button as well, which will give you a little link to the Jurgs Cup and some info that I'm just going to talk about, but I'll let run along the bottom. Essentially, the Jurgs Cup is a community build for anyone to take part in. Doesn't matter if you're an experienced guitar builder or it's going to be your first build. Each year it happens. It normally runs for about a year, but this time it's running for 6 months. It's ending in November. And it really doesn't matter if you don't finish your build. The whole idea is you're building and you're joining a community of people that are there to support you, to encourage you with what you're doing. And quite often people don't finish their builds, but they just keep building them. Don't worry about the deadline. But if you do meet the deadline this year in November, there's a few prizes. So Paul from Mine House Guitars and Corey from Saul Good Guitars and Mick from Mix Guitars are going to be like the judges that look over what's been built, and then they've got some prizes to give away. I've got a few things I'm making to give away, partly that I've done with Paul as well as prizes. It's just an encouraging, supportive network of people that want to build guitars. If you don't want to build a guitar, you can still sort of follow along with the Jurgs Cup on Facebook, on Instagram. Just look for the tag Jurgs Cup, and you can support other people and see what they're doing, see how it's developing. Someone in last week's comments said that to them this was the World Cup of guitar building, which I thought was quite exciting.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, but some people just said what a really supportive community is. So the community really exists on
Yep.
Facebook. There's a Jurgs Cup group. I've linked it in the group below. On Instagram, on the Guitar Builders Collective, it links into Jurgs Cup as well. And it's named after Jürgen Zoller, who was part of a big community of people that built up, I guess, during lockdowns. And unfortunately, he passed away 4 years ago. So Corey decided, quite rightly, that we should continue his sort of legacy of that community and have a focus on that. And so he set up the Jurgs Cup. And this year, there is a theme that you can follow. You don't have to follow the theme. It's just to encourage you to start. And the theme is Guitar Hero. What's your Guitar Hero's guitar? Maybe you can build something inspired by that or link to that. And Don, maybe you could tell us a bit about... Actually, before I even ask you, Don, what you're doing, I'm just say Don again. A few people were saying, is it Don or Doc?
Most people call me Doc.
Right.
At least, I mean, that's kind of goes to the Texas Toast community. But yeah, most people know me as Doc rather than Don.
Oh, so I hope we're not offending you by calling you Don then.
No, not at all. No, I mean, Don is my given name, but most of the people in the guitar building community, at least the ones that I've been around for any length of time, yeah, everybody calls me Doc.
Great. Yeah, because I put in the Facebook group for the Jurgs Cup that you were coming on tonight, and someone said, you got it wrong, it's not Don, it's Doc, it's a typo. Then I got all confused and a bit paranoid and worried, but yeah.
No, either one's fine.
As Spike in the chat said, if you want to take part in the competition element, you're asked to buy a shirt or a bit of merch, and all of that proceeds goes to charity, or you can just donate to some charity as well. I see, Doc, you've got the Jurgs Cup top on.
Yeah, I've got my shirt on.
Fantastic. I bought a vest that I thought would be really good for running in, but I'm too self-conscious to wear it on screen. I don't know why. I don't have that muscular physique. This is as short as my sleeves can get. Considering I spend hours and hours holding a spray gun and doing this, and then sanding and polishing, you'd think I'd have some sort of Mr. Miyagi skills going on and built up a bit of strength.
Daniel,
I
don't know if you've noticed, none of us really have a muscular physique here. We're mostly bearded and doughy.
Yeah. Another reason to not bother putting fret markers on, because you can't see them anyway. Too fat.
Thank you very much.
Right, let's talk about Guitar
You
Hero.
have to say it out loud, mate.
So look, what was your? Because you've already, some people have already finished their builds for the Jurgs Cup, and you're one of those. Tell us about what you built. I think it's on here under one of your builds as well.
It's not on.
No, it's not. It's on Instagram, isn't it?
Different one.
It's on the Jurgs website.
Yeah, I've got to change my screen. Hold on. But while I'm doing that,
Sure.
do tell
So
us.
basically, I'm a huge fan of the early 60s Firebirds, 63, 64, 65. I built the first one in conjunction with the guys at Texas Toast during a neck-through class. Myself and my friend Doug and my other friend Dave, basically, we all built Firebirds. And there was an extra neck billet left over that we were working on as part of the class. It sat unused for a number of years, and I decided to buy it and take it home and finish it. So one of the things I love about the Firebird is the shape and laminate neck through section in the middle, the banjo tuners. One of the things I wasn't really crazy about was the Firebird pickups themselves. So I'm a massive fan of P90s, are my favorite pickups. So I thought, well, what about if I, just basically do my interpretation of one of the 1965 Firebirds, kind of the little transition year where they had a bunch of odd pairings of stuff. So the P90s from the latter part of 65, but the body and the neck and the banjo tuners and all that from the earlier, 63, 64 guitars. It's mahogany and walnut, just like the originals. It's built neck through, just like the originals. It weighs 6.6 pounds, 7 pounds, might be 7 dead on. It is in Belgium right now. There was a really monster guitar player and collector by the name of Siltanen. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his last name right. So that guitar went back from Denver with him, and he's been putting it to use. And I've seen a couple of things that he put out with it, which is really nice. You know, it's always nice to see the guitar get utilized. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I was about to say, so you took it down to the Texas Toast event that happened recently?
Yeah, they asked me early last year if I would be interested in exhibiting down there, bringing some guitars down to exhibit, and so basically had to make a few guitars to take down, and that was one of them. That I like I said, I'm a huge fan of those guitars. They're monumentally difficult to make, but when they're done, they're just, they just look so cool. So I took it down there, and Sultan played it a bunch of times, and just couldn't leave without it. So
amazing.
Yeah, it was quite nice. I was very, very happy to put a guitar into his hand. He's a very accomplished player and has a huge collection. So I'm honored to have one of my instruments be part of it.
So can you tell us a bit about the event? Because obviously,
absolutely,
it sounds like an opportunity for builders to see other builders, but obviously then musicians to have a go at playing.
Right. So the event itself took place over the span of 4 days. Thursday was primarily at the Texas Toast shop, and it was a tele build marathon where we did 26 Telecaster bodies in a day, in an 8-hour day. And we finished up with like 40 seconds to spare. It was quite the thing. All ash bodies. Some of them were maple topped, semi-hollow and maple topped, but 26 bodies in a day. And then of course there was, people could come and go in the shop essentially depending on their pass, free access to everything. Then once 5 o'clock rolled around, we ended up going to a bar in Arvada, which is closer, basically it's close to Westminster where the shop is, but a bar that did custom hats. So if you wanted a custom made cowboy hat or something like that, there was a person set up in the back who basically a hat maker. So went there, really, really cool spots. Friday in the morning, there was a road trip out to Maximum Guitar Works out in Elizabeth, Colorado, which is about an hour and a bit from where the shop is. Maximum Guitar Works is owned by a guy by the name of Steve McElhaney, and it is a factory in every sense of the word. It's got a couple of great big Haas 5-axis CNC machines. I think there's a half dozen employees now, and they build bodies and necks for other companies, essentially ghost build for other companies. They also make templates. So in fact, a lot of the templates that I use are manufactured by Steve. Really, really nice guy. Actually a military helicopter pilot by trade, but somehow got into the guitar industry and now has this factory in his backyard. I mean, it's stunning, the amount of stuff that they can produce. Saturday and Sunday were the guitar show proper, where you had exhibitors, and there was also the Great American Guitar Build-Off, which was done in conjunction with the exposition. And the build-off was really, really simple. It had to be a tele. Other than that, doesn't matter. Sky's the limit. As long as it's identifiable as a Telecaster. There was 45 entries. The way that the rules work is your entry fee is $100 per guitar. You enter as many guitars as you want. And at the end of the competition, the winner just gets all of the money.
That's brilliant, yeah.
So the winner was from Vancouver in British Columbia in Canada, and they literally handed him, an envelope with about 2.5 inches, $100 US bill. It's $4,500 US. Second prize was a guitar that Dylan McCurchie and his daughter Brianna had made. And that was given to the second place finisher. Third place got a very expensive bottle of bourbon. So there was vendors there that are suppliers of parts like drawing a blank here. I get the truss rods, Bitterroot guitars. I get the truss rods from them. They're a parts supplier, like an OEM parts supplier. Steve from Maximum Guitar Works had a booth there. Dylan McCurchie had a booth. There was a couple of guitar builders that one came from California, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name of the company. Oh, there was also Hendrickson Amplifiers. That's another thing that took place there as well. If you're familiar with Hendrickson Amplifiers, they're very, very popular in the jazz scene. Pete Hendrickson was nice enough to host an evening, which I believe was Friday night after the Maximum Guitar Works thing, before the Pinewood Derby took place on Friday night as well, too. I should tell you about that. So, yeah, we had a chance to go to the Hendrickson Amplifiers production facility. They had a really nice room set up upstairs with somebody playing one of their little amps. If you've never seen them, do yourself a favor and check them out. They're absolutely incredible. Just, you cannot believe that so much sound can come out of something so small. Just brilliant.
The last couple of weeks I haven't been around very much, so I'm quite behind on YouTube. So I really need to catch up on what Texas Toast have done. I guess they've got lots of videos for it. I saw Paul from Mine House had his videos up as well with them. Yeah,
it was. There's such a community out there that has grown up around the shop. Even the brewery. There was a brewery event on Friday night as well, where they had something called a Pinewood Derby car race, which is these little cars that you make when you're in Cub Scouts and you run them down a track. So they had that, but they also had a Pinewood Derby guitar build-off where they were selling these kits ahead of time, and your kit was your entry into the competition. There was 8 or 9 of them, I think, that showed up, and the winner was Brian Duncan, who did essentially a spot-on, perfect blackguard telly with a pine body. It was gorgeous. Just a beautiful guitar. Played great, looked great, just finished absolutely perfectly. So, the interesting thing is the shop out there has taught so many people how to make instruments now that, guys like Brian, he's been out to the shop many, many times. Guys like Dave, who was in the chat here earlier, has been out to the shop, I think, for 10 different courses. They're excellent guitar builders in their own right. It's amazing what a little bit of instruction and a whole bunch of goodwill can do to further the community. Just like, with the Jurgs Cup, it's all about the community.
Yeah, if you're the right teachers and you're passionate, then that helps build that community so well. And they seem to be like that. But before we end, there's a question that I haven't really asked you, which we sort of alluded to earlier on, and we were talking about just off air, about your inability to be able to paint guitars all year round because of the cold. I find that fascinating because there are certain times here where I can't work, or I can. I've just got to really heat my spray booth for the whole day, and then I can spray it in the evening. But
I spray basically once we get temperatures that are above, it would be 20 degrees Celsius, more or less, consistently and not raining. So that usually means the end of May, beginning of June. This year, it was a little bit later, so it was into the beginning of June. I had some commitments the first couple of weekends because I'm still working full time, so I have to sneak this stuff in on the weekends. And my spray booth is actually in my father's garage. So I'm at the mercy of the weather. I'm spraying primarily urethane rather than nitrocellulose. I got away from spraying nitrocellulose lacquer pretty early on, just because of the 6 weeks it would take to cure before I could do anything. So I have switched over to using urethane-based products, and that really helped a lot. But I mean, the unfortunate thing for me is I will do a flurry of painting for 2 to 3 weeks, and then that's it, and I don't touch it again until the next year. So, it takes a little while to build those skills. And I'm sure in your case, where you're spraying with regularity, the skills have a chance to actually blossom a little bit, whereas mine really don't. So, is my Achilles heel for sure. In fact, I made an instrument for Paul that he took home with him, and the unfortunate thing was that it had to be done while he was here, and so I could give it to him. And I as much as I tried, as much as I could, there was flaws in it that I couldn't get out. The only way to get them out would have been to strip it and start over, and I just didn't have time.
Right.
So I went home with a guitar that has some imperfections that are going to drive me nuts the rest of my life.
So here I actually have the opposite. There is certain, during the peak of summer, I can't spray, because within seconds of actually starting to lay down coats, the thinners are evaporating straight off and straight out of the body, and I'm just left with paint that goes everywhere. But yeah, same as yourself. I find it quite often it's that my abilities or skills go nowhere, because I just have to get everything done in a short period of time, and then step back and go, well, it is what it is now. And like yourself, I think it's probably every single guitar I've ever made, there are imperfections that I just have to live with. Nobody else sees them, and that's fine. But I think we can safely say we all have those imperfections in our products that are just like, we know they're there.
Yep.
We know they're there. No one else knows they're there, but we know they're there, and they're never going away.
No, that's the unfortunate or fortunate, depending on how you look at it. I've never made the perfect guitar, and I probably never will, but I'm going to keep trying. So that I'm in the same boat as you. There's not a single instrument that I've made that doesn't have something that I wish I could correct. And unfortunately, sometimes you run out of time, sometimes you run out of skill. And it's just, I don't possess the skills necessary to get this any better. But the lovely thing about it is, I could try again. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think if I ever made a guitar that was absolutely perfect, then I wouldn't want to make any more. Is that right?
I'd quit.
I don't know if I'm phrasing that right. But there's always something, like when I'm doing one, I always think, I could do it differently next time. So it's not always just an imperfection. It's just change the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And we tend as builders, I find, to be very, very focused, very right in on such a minute level that by the time you're done with the instrument and it's strung up and ready for somebody else to play, the only thing that you can see is the flaws. And I've found myself with instruments where I've retained them, put it away for 6 months or put it away for a year, and then drag it back out, and all of a sudden now I can see the bigger picture. Those imperfections, while they're still there, they're not the focal point anymore, and I'm able to enjoy the instrument as a whole, instead of being fixated on the things that I wish I could have done better. And I think the local thing you're giving to somebody else is they don't have it. They get to see the picture right off the bat. And I love that.
Yeah. Like we're talking about, like having those little imperfections in there. I'm sitting here. I can see my camera image on the monitor, and I can see the strap behind me, and I can see the one particular section in my monitor just down there. I can actually see where the paint's just a little too heavy.
Yeah, no one will notice. You know it's there.
No one else has noticed, but even through the internet and the camera, I can see it.
Yeah,
I can see that. I can see that horn that's too heavy on paint.
Yeah, I've got half a dozen guitars sitting behind me on a rack, and I can, I can just without even looking at the guitar, I can tell you exactly where the flaws are in each one.
And when you begin to look at it, your eyes will immediately go to that flaw.
Yep.
But one thing we don't talk about is I presume you can also think for all of those guitars exactly where the bits you're most proud of are.
Exactly. I mean, for me, it's about playability and sound. Yes, I might have messed up the paint. However, sounds good, plays good. And in the hands of somebody who can actually utilize it, my skills are fairly limited. But I've been fortunate enough to hand instruments off to a number of really talented players and let them have a go and just sit back and think, okay, I had no idea that guitar could make that sound. It's lovely, And that for me is the big thrill, the big payoff at the end of all of this hard work is when I get a chance to just hear what somebody else can do with it. That's for me is the number one.
Yeah.
What a great place to end. That is fantastic. Doc, thank you for that. No, I love that. That's what we make guitars for ourselves, but they're to make music. And
yeah, exactly.
It's great to hear someone making music with them. So look, if anyone's watching who is doing anything for the Jurgs Cup and thinks they'd love to come on and just have a chat, please let me know, or let Alan know. Alan's really good at coordinating everything for us at the moment. I think we're going to do next Friday, if that's right. And then I'm out of sync, but then we're going to start swapping to Mondays at some point. I'm away for a week, so it'll be when I get back. I'm realizing Friday nights are a bit harder to get people together. So I'm glad you could make it, Doc. Fantastic. Alan and Ray. And you're always welcome back if you've got more you want to chat about. I'm quite keen, once the Jurgs Cup's over, to do a couple of streams where we've got a few people on just to talk about their finished guitars a bit more, talk about each other's guitars. Alan, we haven't talked about yours yet, really.
Not in whole. Seen little bits on some of the bits, yeah. It's sitting back there at the moment. Oh.
So thanks to everyone in the chat. Brilliant to see you. Thank you, Doc. Absolutely brilliant. And see you all next Friday.
See you guys.
See ya.
Take care.